Okay guys, before I move any further, if you have not watched the new Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt movie, Kimmy versus the Reverend, you're going to want to stop here. This is a spoiler review. If you want my spoiler-free review, it's already live on the channel. You can find it right at the top of the screen or in the description below. The link is there for you guys. Check out that review and then come back and find out which choices I made in this interactive special. Okay, so enough of me talking, and let's get into all the choices that I made. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today, like I just said, we're talking about every single bit of spoilers that I can fit into one review for Kimmy versus the Reverend based on the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt TV series on Netflix. It is an amazing series. If you haven't watched it, you owe it to yourself. But in my spoiler-free review for Kimmy versus the Reverend, I mentioned that this movie is not so great. It's a little disappointing, and unfortunately that holds up true a second time around, going back and looking at the choices that I made. So before I get started and we dive into all of that, if this is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James. Now if you're wondering who that is, that's me, and I love talking all about movies. So if you like what you hear and what you see, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel. Now don't forget to tap on the bell, stay up to date with everything new that we're doing. Like this video, share with your friends, and guys, get loud in the comments below. Let me know what choices you made during Kimmy versus the Reverend. I'm curious to see if we made the same choices or if we made different ones and what your experience was like in this interactive special. Alrighty guys, let's get started. If I could crack my knuckles I would, but I really can't. So at the beginning of the film, it pretty much starts you off right away with making a decision and gets you in the mood. Kimmy is looking for her wedding dress because her and Prince Frederick are due to get married in 3 weeks, and you get to pick between a fun dress or a fancy dress. And I chose the fun dress, and well, that's because it's a Kimmy choice. And this is where you start to learn about this running joke throughout the movie where Jacqueline is Titus's agent and he's prepping for this role as a Navy SEAL on a Mark Wahlberg film, and he has to get fit and has to go and run and weight lift, and you start to hear a lot about that earlier in the film. So Jacqueline tries to encourage him to go and work out, and he says, well, I could, or I could take a nap. So the choices there were either you really do go and work out or you lie and then go take a nap, and I chose lie and take a nap just to see how funny it would be, and it was moderately funny. It was okay. I mean, I'm getting in the habit of, picking the choices and, seeing how the characters react, and at first, I'm not gonna lie, it really was smooth, and honestly, I can tell you throughout the entire way through, definitely a smooth experience. And while Titus is napping, you get another choice, and this time I chose wake Titus up, and he's pretty much shouting at ambulances, and there's a dancing hamburger across the screen. Yeah, I was confused too. Then we get thrown back to Kimmy and her fiance Prince Frederick, played by Daniel Radcliffe, and she is really excited to show him this book she found in Jan, the talking backpack, which is still hilarious. And you get to make a decision. Do you want to, plan for the wedding, or do you want to read the book? And there's a few different choices there if I'm not mistaken, and I chose read a book or read the book. So she's reading the book while Prince Frederick is doing all the planning, and then eventually I think they make out, and it's kind of funny. There are different scenarios that whether or not you chose the opposite choice, that happens anyway, and this was one of those scenes. And then shortly after, I think Prince Frederick encourages her to call and invite someone, I guess, for the bachelorette party, if I'm not mistaken. And the first choice that me and my girlfriend chose was Donna Maria, because she's so funny, and I really do love the actress, and I think she's just got so much great comedic timing. Unfortunately, that's the only bit of Donna Maria that we see, at least on this storyline, and that's a bummer. This is the first time, though, the story restarted this scene, so whenever a choice needs to be restarted, you kind of get the sense it's trending in that direction, and then another character, whether it be Cindy, sometimes Mikey, Xanthippe, they'll come on screen and they'll kind of give you this, hey, you made the wrong choice ordeal, and then the scene restarts and you get this rewind effect, and then you can go back, and if you have only one choice left, that one's picked by default, and if not, you get to pick one of the 2 remaining choices. And this time chose Cindy, and that was the right choice because it propelled the story forward. And the next choice is whether or not you want to take Jacqueline or Titus to Indiana, or I think it's Indiana. I can't remember actually where, because I'm not gonna lie, it was a little forgettable, but they want to go find the other bunker that the Reverend is holding more women in, unfortunately. This sounds really dark, because sometimes it is, but trust me, it's a comedy series. And I chose Titus, and I wonder, this is actually the first time that I wondered if we took Jacqueline, how different would it be? So now Jacqueline gets sent to the movie set. She's on set with all these different costume designers, scriptwriters, directors, and she has to stall for Titus. And if you watch my spoiler-free review, you know that I didn't like the Jacqueline storyline too much where she had to stall for Titus. It led to a really bad Me Too joke, and I didn't necessarily think it was necessary, and it really did kill a lot of momentum up to that point. And now this is a little Easter egg that I think most people won't choose because the intro to Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is so legendary, but if you choose to skip the intro and go right back to the story, the gentleman who sings the song, you know, it's a miracle, you know what I'm talking about, he comes on screen and says, "Excuse me, you're not skipping my intro. We're going to do an extended take," and you get that extended cut, and it's just a very long intro. And honestly, I was a little bored of it after a little while. It was just too much, so you just start to hit the +10 on your Netflix screen, if you're using your iPad, of course, and you just go forward 10 seconds. It was okay. It wasn't the greatest. And then in the following scene, Kimmy goes and meets the Reverend in prison with Titus, and Kimmy's, interrogating essentially the Reverend one-on-one to find out where the rest of these women are. And you have, I think, 2 choices. You don't have 3. It's get down to beeswax or socialize with the Reverend. I chose get down to beeswax because no one likes the Reverend, of course, so Kimmy would choose that choice. And then there's a lot of jumping, so you then go back to Prince Frederick with Cindy and Lillian, and since there was no bachelorette party, they all kind of take each other out and they just go and have a good time at this karaoke bar, and you can choose whether or not Cindy or Lillian will sing, because they're trying to prove a point, at least Lillian is, that men are unfaithful the day before their wedding or something like that. Lillian is zany, of course. Lillian is singing, and then in the following scene, Prince Frederick kisses Lillian, which was really shocking, but then you start to see there's an internal conflict. Do you tell Kimmy and crush the wedding, or do you not and let them live happily ever after with a big secret? And okay, I'm getting exhausted because then you go back to Titus and Kimmy, and Titus hails an Uber, and they're gonna wait for it to, reach them. But the thing is, the joke here is Titus says, Mamadou, no, you're making the wrong turn. So you have 2 choices: wait for Mamadou or walk to town. And I chose walk to town here, but in the trailer, if you've seen the trailer for Kimmy versus the Reverend, there's this one scene where Cindy comes on screen and there's 2 skeletons, one Titus and one Kimmy, and I think that would have been the result of this scene if you would have chose to wait for Mamadou. And the next choice I made was for Jacqueline to use the excuse of a wardrobe issue in order to continue to stall for Titus on set. Again, I think that this really just distracted from the story and felt like choices just to make choices. It was just there. There was really no point to it, in my opinion. And then eventually Kimmy and Titus stumble upon this bar in Indiana, and they're trying to find out if anyone knows or has any information on the Reverend. Before that, though, they all kind of get ridiculed, and in order to convince the bar that they're real deal and they need to have a question answered, you get 2 choices. Either Titus thinks he knows how to sing Freebird to unite the bar, or he really does know how to sing Freebird. The Lynyrd Skynyrd classic. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, this was actually a pretty fun scene to sit through. I mean, really, Titus can sing his butt off, and it made me miss Titus so much, and I wish we got more of him in this movie. But I chose the he thinks he does, in terms of knowing the Freebird song, and he gets thrown off stage, and there's this really funny sequence of a 911 operator responding to Titus and how the bar is like pretty much shooting at them and throwing them out. And eventually the scene restarts itself, and the choice that is made by default is that he knows the Lynyrd Skynyrd song Freebird, and it was a great scene. And then eventually we get to decide how the Reverend breaks out of prison. I chose karate because I think even in the series he knew karate, so I thought it was just the natural progression for things, and he, well, fights the guard, but the prison guard shoots, and one of the bullets, I think, hits him right in the neck. So basically it backfired, and the karate did nothing to help the Reverend, but the Reverend breaks out. And then eventually we get this resolution with the whole Lillian, Cindy, and Prince Frederick drama that I didn't really expect, but basically Lillian looks exactly alike because it is Carol Kane playing the nanny for Prince Frederick. So I chose here that Prince Frederick should go with Lillian instead of the nanny. I forgot, Fiona, I think her name is, in order to learn how relationships really are, because he has no experience. Prince Frederick, I think this is his first real relationship. But the whole time here, it's really just an innuendo for things. But the highlight moment here is that we see Xanthippe for one of the few times that we see her throughout the film. I really wish we had more of her because she's so funny. And then again, we get thrown back to Jacqueline being on set, and she has to stall for Titus one more time. and here you choose playing mind games with the lady that comes and bangs Titus, like his pants. So it is, again, just really distracting from the overall plot. And the following scene is actually the Johnny Knoxville cameo from the trailer, where he's a gas station owner and he has his child with him that he doesn't really watch over because she has a handgun on her little walker thingy. It's definitely unusual. But once Johnny Knoxville's character leaves the gas station, you have to either make a choice: follow the Reverend and not lose any time, or stay with the baby and see if eventually you can catch up with the Reverend, because, you know, this is Kimmy we're talking about. She's not going to leave a baby, right? Well, I chose to follow the Reverend, and that restarted the entire scene, and eventually you have to babysit and then you catch up with the Reverend anyway. But during that scene restart, you see Mikey, and unfortunately this is the only time you really see Mikey, and he has a moment for himself. It's about a minute long or so, and that's disappointing because Mikey was a big part of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I don't understand why they didn't really bring back some of these supporting characters that had a great deal of impact for fans and the show alike. And for the second to last time, we're thrown back to the set with Jacqueline, and she has to again stall for Titus. Honestly, I think this is probably the most disappointing part of the entire movie, is that Jacqueline's character, in this storyline at least, was completely wasted in terms of potential and opportunity. So she asks this costume set designer about her year. They get into this huge discussion and they end up bonding. Luckily, the following scene is really back into the action. Kimmy and Titus are on the trail and they really are right behind the Reverend. However, there were some series of events that happened before this at Festeroo, which is like supposed to be a spoof on fire festival, and they steal bikes. Kimmy and Titus steal the bikes, and they also, unfortunately, steal shrooms, and Titus takes a shroom and ingests said shroom and starts to see food on the side of the road. In this instance, you get a choice. Do you follow Kimmy, or do you go and eat at the Woodland banquet, is what they call it. It's just a spread of imaginary food. So we chose the food, and I guess it was pretty funny, but that is the last you see of Titus on the main storyline. And then you get into a scene that isn't interactive, but I just have to say it one more time. It's Jacqueline on set, and because she lied, all the like male cast and crew figure out that, oh my gosh, she lied, does that mean women lie? We're back to everything we did prior to the Me Too movement. So, you know, men are back to harassing women. It's a play on the entire, it's supposed to be sort of commentary, like social commentary for Hollywood and the state of Hollywood, but I don't think it really worked at all. It was just not funny, and if anything, it was kind of gross to sit through a second time. So here is where you get 4 choices, if not even 5 choices, I think it was. So Kimmy has the Reverend dead to rights. You can either choose to spare him, kill him, explode him, stomp him, or shoot him was the other choice. So the first choice we chose was stomp him, which is where she basically kicks him to death. That restarts the scene, but here you actually get this funny sequence for about 30 seconds where in an alternate timeline, Xanthippe and Prince Frederick actually are together and they're married. So once everything is rewound, I chose explode him, which I had no idea what would happen at that point, but Kimmy goes off screen and then comes back on screen with a rocket launcher. That was one of those funnier laugh out loud moments, and they end up blowing each other up. It's so ridiculous, and the following 30-second scene is also ridiculous, where in an alternate timeline, Prince Frederick ends up marrying a clone of Kimmy, and this Kimmy clone very much wants a family. We'll leave it at that. So at that point, I was really kind of tired, and I didn't want to choose shoot him because I thought it was just, you know, a little much now. I wanted to move the story forward, so the only choice there logically was spare him. So I chose that and it advanced the story forward. Kimmy eventually finds the bunker where the Reverend was hiding these women in Indiana, and it kind of comes full circle for Kimmy, and it feels really kind of like a finale moment for her, where she was once someone who was a victim and needed rescuing, and now she's the hero who rescues the victims. It is a cool, like, full circle moment for her. And yep, that's it. The end. Prince Frederick and Kimmy get married. Xanthippe is, I guess, the officiant of the wedding, and that's it. But then LILLIAN comes back on screen and says, hey, I'm gonna encourage you to restart the story. However, like I said in my spoiler-free review, there's not much else to do. It just felt like it was a little rushed, and even though all these choices that I made sometimes were funny and sometimes weren't great, I don't want to have to go through that again, right? I don't want to go through another mixed bag of emotions and storylines for another hour. So I'm curious, you guys, what did you choose during Kimmy versus the Reverend? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and share it if you loved it. Also, go ahead and hit the big red button below, and please subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 1,500 subscribers. It is such a blessing. Alrighty, I got more movies and TV shows to watch, you guys. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.